Should I begin? Shall we start, Sakshi? Yes, okay.
Yes, we're live. Please start.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining Charcha 2020. More than 10,000 people like yourself have been joining us on Zoom and live stream on YouTube since yesterday to come forward and collaborate on preparing ourselves to the new order post-COVID-19. It's my pleasure to introduce the speakers for this much-awaited masterclass. Our first speaker is a London School of Economics graduate. She is the founder of Educate Girls, a non-profit organization that partners with the government to identify, enroll, and retain out-of-school girls to improve foundational skills in literacy and numeracy for all children. Under her leadership, Educate Girls was announced as an audacious project at the TED 2019 conference, where she shared the audacious plan of empowering over 1 million girls to enter the classrooms by scaling the model to 35,000 marginalized villages by 2024. Pleasure to have you, Safina Hussain, founder and CEO of Educate Girls. We're also joined by Maharishi Vaishnav, who is the Chief of Staff at Educate Girls. In his current role, he assists the founder CEO to deliver her strategic vision. Prior to Educate Girls, Maharishi was on a research fellowship with the Grameen Foundation in Southeast Asia, where he evaluated mobile technology solutions for women micro-entrepreneurs. Over to the two of you, Safina and Maharishi.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Can you hear me fine, Sriram? Hi, Safina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So guys, thanks for joining us. It's great to be able to tell you more about how we've been raising funds over the last dozen odd years. And before I move into, oh, sorry, why isn't it moving? Sorry, just give me a moment. The presentation. Okay, perfect. The agenda for today, a bit about us. We'll tell you a little bit about what we do. What are the key ingredients for our winning proposal based on our experience, and what has worked for us and what hasn't worked for us. So, very quick introduction. So, there are different approaches to fundraising, right? I mean, we have CRY, Akshay Patra, UNICEF, St. Jude's, who are quite the legends in the retail fundraising space, using both conventional and new age fundraising tools. Then, there are incredible digital intermediaries that have come up. There's the Milaps, the Ketos, Pratham Books, Let's Change, etc. Magic Bus, while it does great fundraising, was one of the earliest to adopt the fundraising gala kind of a format. There is Dasra, there is CAF, there is Give India, which are great intermediaries with HNIs and UHNIs. And then there are organizations like us who have relied largely on institutional fundraising. And this approach, has required us to articulate our story and write a compelling proposal, write compelling proposals, for different kind of institutional funders, like foundations, like trusts, like venture philanthropies, corporations, etc. So we are going to tell you a little bit about what we have done over the last dozen years, and how we have evolved, to doing what we do. So what, as an organization, what are we targeting? So just to give you a background, there are about 200 million women who are illiterate in India. The female literacy is at 64% compared to male literacy of about 85%. There are over 4 million girls who are out of school. And this is despite, India having universalized primary education and a significant chunk of students, including girls, who are already in school. In the geographies where we operate in, we have 67% child brides. And overall, if you look at India, 76% of all people who are trafficked in India are women and girls. So 76% women and girls, out of all people trafficked in India. Our model is comprehensive, it's codified, it's scalable and replicable. So basically we go door to door to identify each and every out of school girl. Then we work very, very closely with the community and the parents to make them understand why their girls are equal to boys and why their girls need education. We do this via a cadre of village-based community volunteers whom we call Team Balika. They are our eyes and ears on the ground. They are our change makers on the ground. And via them, we enroll girls in school. We keep girls in school. We ensure that they learn well in school, and then we provide essential life skills in the school. So we provide both in school and out of school support. This is our sort of growth trajectory. Over the last dozen years, we have grown from a 50 villages pilot to a program which is currently present in over 17,000 villages. So, that's a 60+% of CAGR. Our current budget for this year is about 115 crore budget. Now, again, a dozen years back, 12 years back, our budget was 15 lakhs. So, from 15 lakhs to 115 crores over 12 years. Again, this is a CAGR of about 73-74%. So essentially, we have doubled every 15 to 18 months as an organization. Our fundraising, because we focus purely on institutional fundraising, is at a very minimal cost. So we spend less than 1% of our annual budget on fundraising. We have a small, nimble team of about 5 members. And we have so far worked only with about between 25 to 30 funders, because over 90% of our funding is multi-year, and over 90% of funders renew us year on year. So Safina is going to tell you more about what are the ingredients of our of our fundraising, of our winning proposal. Safina, over to you.
Hi. Thanks, Marshi, for walking everybody through Educate Girls' journey. And I have to just make come clear right at the beginning that I am under lockdown in a village. So if my connection is weird and my voice stretches or distorts or whatever, please call it out immediately. And Maharishi is there as a backup. So in case you are not able to hear me, he will take over, because we really don't want you to suffer through bad connections. So just putting that out there right at the start. It has been an incredible journey. I started it, as Maharshi said, 12 years ago. And a rapidly scaling organization has just meant that your fundraising needs double every 15 to 18 months. And as anybody who raises money, you know how tough that is. It's hard enough raising money for your annual needs, but really to be able to, if those needs double, if your budget doubles every 18 months, you're looking at a very, very tough situation. You have to keep all the donors who are already funding you, and plus you have to run out and find, that much more money from new donors. So it is a tough thing. And essentially what we have, and again, this is just from our experience. I mean, there are lots of fundraising experts out there who can give you very solid advice on how do you use retail and how do you diversify and all the rest of it. Today, I'm just going to speak from our experience of what we have done and what has actually just worked for us. And I think the biggest thing whenever we approach a donor is we have to be really clear as an organization as to what is the problem that we're trying to address. And I call it the vision of success. We have to be very, very clear. If you close your eyes, you should be able to see what is the problem, and you should be able to see what is the solution. We should be able to explain very simply what we do to change that problem and with success. Obviously, why are we the best people to do it? What is our core strength, perhaps? And then if this change happens, what will the world look like? What will be the new normal, or the new equilibrium? And therefore, putting all of this together, what is really our core idea that we're trying to communicate through this proposal? So I generally, we organize our thoughts around these buckets. To make them come alive for you a little bit more, I will just run you through how Educate Girls actually answers these particular questions in this order. And then I'll just sort of tease out some of the guiding principles that hopefully might be useful for you as you kind of think about building your own proposals and your own fundraising. So essentially, I think, as I said, the first is be very, very, very clear about the problem. And for us, it is really about that out of school girl. If I close my eyes, I know what the problem looks like. I see a little girl who goes to fetch water, gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning. She's doing all the household chores and she doesn't go to school. She's married early because she marries early. She has children early. She has children early. She's more likely to die in childbirth and be stuck in a cycle of illiteracy and poverty generation after generation. Because we know that if the mother's not educated, the children are then less likely to go to school. So that's the problem. I can see it with my own eyes. And then when I see the solution, I see my vision of success is also very clear. This is the girl who is in school. She's staying in school. She's making friends. She's having her midday meal with her friends. She has a network around her. She's learning to be able to read and write and so on and so forth. So being very, very specific and clear as to what is the problem and therefore what does the solution look like and why is this solution important? And I think for girls' education, we say, that it helps to solve 9 of the 17 sustainable development goals. Everything from malnutrition, child mortality, maternal mortality, when they talk about, livelihoods, child marriage, all of these can actually be improved, all of the indicators, if we educate girls. And even more so, climate scientists have now rated, they rated 80 actions to reverse global warming. And girls' education was at number 6, even higher than solar panels and electric cars. So this is why we do what we do. And you have to make a really strong case for why solving this problem is so key and so critical. And so I always say to people that this is not just a problem that we need to solve for our own families, our society, our GDP, our economy, for the planet, but also because it's a problem you only have to solve once, because once she is educated, she is 200% more likely to educate her children. So it is really the battle of our lifetime. And so once you've actually clarified that and why, what is the problem and why is it really important, we kind of move to the next piece, which is that what will we do to help kind of solve this problem? And for us, we built our 5-year plan with our board, and we actually educate girls moves in chunks of 5-year plans. So, and we're currently in our, since we're 12 years old, in our second 5-year plan. And this plan really saw us taking our model from 14,000 villages to 35,000 villages in 4 states. So in our earlier 5-year plan, we were only in Rajasthan. And the plan is that by 2024, we will take the Educate Girls model to Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and possibly another state. And which means that we will grow our staff strength to over 3,000 full-time staff and about 25,000 village-based volunteers whom we call Team Balika. So the idea, the plan is to scale massively. And what are we really going to do? What do we do? And I think Maharshi already talked about it. But really, I think because our problem is a girl who's not going to school, the solution is really built around that problem. And that is that first and foremost, we go door to door, we knock on doors to find every single girl who might have dropped out or has never been enrolled, convince families, neighborhoods, villages, communities, individual counseling to help bring her back into the school system. And then make sure that the school is girl-friendly, it has a separate girls' toilet, it has all the facilities that she needs. We run a foundational literacy, numeracy curriculum, we call it. She's not just in school, but she's learning. And then for the older girls, we run a life skills program. But really, that's what we do is go everything from finding that out of school girl and then doing everything we can to ensure her enrollment, retention, and learning. So very, very outcomes focused. So it isn't about scaling an activity. It's not about just scaling, village meetings or community mobilization. What we do links up very clearly to outcomes that we then project and try and see what are those outcomes that we can actually deliver on. And then once we have done that, then we really focus on why educate girls. And over the past 12 years, we have invested very heavily in building evidence for this model and course correcting and tweaking and streamlining this model so that it has the highest impact. And because I was always very worried that we might be scaling and replicating, but are we really having value add for that girl? So our last evaluation was a gold standard RCT, a randomized controlled trial evaluation, where the third-party evaluator, basically his report said that Educate Girls over a period of 3 years was able to enroll 92% of all out-of-school girls back into school. And that our learning levels for children in our program went up so much compared to regular government schools that it was kind of like having an additional year of schooling for the average child. And when you have that, you know that you have evidence. You know that, yes, this model will work. I am outcomes focused. Even if I take it to 35,000 villages, I'm still going to have an impact. And also, I think our core strength is our leadership. Our core strength is our board. We have an incredibly tough board that we try and please every quarter, and we get shouted at, and they always want us to do better. But having very, very, very strong governance. But the other big core strength we have is the use of digital technology. We don't just go door to door. We actually do it with smartphones. We have our own app. In the last few years, we've knocked on over 5 million households, and the data comes to us in real time. So we're very quickly able to see where are the hotspots, where are the areas which have the highest number of out-of-school girls, and be able to do our micro planning and our child level planning based on that. So I think investing also in our core strength is investing heavily in technology, and monitoring, evaluation, etc., and very, very, very strong governance. So bringing all of those out in the proposal becomes quite key. And then, and then really describing, what the end state really looks like. So if we scale to 35,000 villages across the areas where we believe have the highest incidence of out-of-school girls, we can actually bring back 1.5 million girls into school and actually improve learning outcomes for 900, close to 1 million children by 2024. So that's really what the end state looked like. And we know what this means. It means that if 1.5 million girls are in school and they are learning in these critical villages, that you can really close the gender and illiteracy gap forever and tackle poverty and all the rest of it. But I think really just being very clear, what does your end state look like if you get funded over the 5 years? So therefore, what was our core idea for a winning proposal? Because of all of this work, because we had data from over 5 million households, our core idea was that with advanced analytics, like which is sort of predictive analytics, machine learning, etc., that we want to identify 5% of the villages in India that have 40% of the out-of-school girls. So you're really looking at villages, which are the worst in terms of girls' education and scaling our model there. And I kind of want to touch a little bit on, how do we get to this? And the answer is really simple. Girls are out of school because of 2 Ps, poverty and patriarchy. So through the data, what we're able to do is we're able to precision target the poorest villages and the most socially marginalized villages. And that's where these 2 factors come together is where you have the highest number of out-of-school girls. The problem is really critical. So here's the core idea is that we can take an evidence-based, smart, data and tech-based model, which is also rooted in the community. It's run by community volunteers. Down to these villages so that we can actually, try and solve the problem of out-of-school girls in those 5% of the villages, which have up to 40% of the problem in the country. So that is what was our audacious vision, in a sense, that we had to sort of put together. And that's what I think that's what we took to the audacious project, the TED project. we were encouraged to apply, but we were like, oh, we don't know anything about this. This is for other people. This is only for like American organizations or, European organizations, because all the winners that we had seen before of the audacious projects were really organizations from the West. We had never seen anybody like us ever winning this. So even though we just didn't think that this was meant for us, but we were encouraged. They said, at least put your proposal in. We did. There were some 1,500 plus organizations from the world over who had applied. And then finally, through a rigorous shortlisting project, we made it to the last 8 who were then declared at the TED conference as an audacious project. And we felt really, really proud that we were the first in Asia to actually be able to reach that. And we felt really proud. And then what we really felt was this was a win for local NGOs, grassroots NGOs. This was such a win for India. And we really wanted to bring this vision back to other organizations and say, you know what, all of us can dream to be able to be big, bettable, and to be able to tell our stories in a way that we can really raise the voice that we want to raise for our girls, for whatever our issues are. So we felt really proud that this team, which is 99% from the villages where we work, that we were able to put our argument together. So in terms of what has really worked for us, I think having a 5-year strategy has always been really good for us because it gives us the end point. It tells us where we're going. We run it by our field, our board, with everybody. So it's like a Bible for us, and that really helps. I think definitely building evidence, whether it is a survey to all the way to an RCT, but always building evidence has really worked. I think, again, no mission drift and no mission creep, no distractions to your core purpose. And for us, that out of school girl, we never think that we should, deviate and go this way or that way. It is always, always, always focused on what is good for that out of school girl. And we keep her center stage in everything that we do. I think very, very clear communication. Before I went to TED, I would practice in front of my daughters, and they were 10 and 13 at the point. And they would say, but what are you saying? We have no idea. And you're talking about girls' education. And I realized that as a sector, we use so much jargon and we use so many big words. And really, I think we now try and build our proposals in a way that even a child, a 10, 12-year-old child should be able to understand what we are trying to say. And we strictly try and enforce that to make sure that we're not using words which, is just simple, what I call human English, human language. I think also aligning with the right donors. We don't chase money because if you do, then you get into the mission drift and mission creep. But how do you research, find the donors that are really aligned to your vision of success, to the purpose that you want to, and then those donors are the ones, they will find you other donors. And that's how it's kind of worked for us, is the warmest introduction we always get is from our current funders. But there's also a flip side to this. What hasn't worked for us is that we have to say no a lot, because if our strategic vision and the funder's strategic vision doesn't match, then we don't think it's a good partnership. We've walked away from existing partnerships because either they wanted us to build toilets or do something else, which again was away from our mission. And so we've had to sort of step back from relationships only to stay focused on things that are highest pool of funders. So there's a complete lack of diversity, which in itself is a huge risk that we actually carry with us. But the flip side of that is that most of our funders have been with us for 10 years, or more. They give us money up to 5 years so that we know that we have commitments, which are multi-year commitments. And that actually helps to give us the kind of stability for scale that we need, and being able to invest in people, invest in processes, and we can upfront a lot of that investment because we have multi-year commitments. So I will kind of stop there. And Rishi, is there anything you wanted to add, or we go to questions? Anything else that I've kind of missed that you'd like to?
No, I think we've covered everything, and we can head to questions. Sriram, would you?
I'm not sure.
So I'll pick up one. It says, do you share your evaluations like the RCT publicly? Yes, absolutely. I think if you go to, I don't know if that website, it's on our website. It's on our resources page on the Educate Girls website. You should actually be able to find the final evaluation results of the RCT and a lot of information. So yes, it is definitely available publicly. And if you want it, and if you don't find it, then please write to us and we will share it with you.
There's a question on how important is the cost per child metric in your proposal? What has been your cost per child over the course of 12 years? So shall I take that? So cost per child metric is important for us because we want to ensure economies of scale and you know that our program delivers to a large set of beneficiaries at adequate economies of scale. And this is important for some of our funders because they track our performance year on year vis-a-vis certain cost versus benefit parameters. So we have a venture philanthropist who's been funding us for the last 9 years now. And they are very clear that, you know, our cost per beneficiary, our cost per enrolled girl, our cost per school and cost per village stay within a certain, certain price range. So our cost per child per se has historically been between $4 to $6 per child. Our cost per enrolled girl would stay anywhere between 18 to about $22 per girl child enrolled. So yeah, it's important to certain sets of funders, not all, and the range has been fairly consistent over the years. The next question is, how are you tackling the COVID crisis in terms of the actual work in states where you work and in terms of fundraising? Great question, great question. So as far as our actual work is concerned, what's happening is that these are summer months, right? April, May, June is when the schools are shut. And we spend a bulk of this quarter in training our team, both employees and Team Balika and our community volunteers, that is, and in doing background work, so our door-to-door survey, etc. So as we speak, our training, we have pivoted completely to digital training, and our door-to-door, unfortunately, isn't happening right now as we speak. So that's the only thing that is getting delayed, but otherwise we aren't losing much programmatic time. Fundraising during COVID, 15 days into the COVID crisis in India, and I'm talking about late March, early April, 3 of our funders actually, wrote to us, very categorically suggesting that their commitments this year, the 2021 financial year, are going to get impacted, and that we should expect significant delays or perhaps even, non-renewal of commitments. So it has impacted us, but because we have been working with our funders over time, over a fairly long time, we have great equations with them. So we have reached out to all of them and basically sought some guidance on their commitment, and then three of them got back saying it's going to be a little. Most of them have actually confirmed that, it's not going to be a problem and they'll continue supporting us. Majority of them actually have actually asked us if we want them to expedite their grants, in order to sort of, manage certainties, in order to, manage cash flows, etc., etc. So it's been a fairly a good run so far. with a very select, very few funders suggesting uncertainty, but otherwise most of them are very much on track. And as we speak, we continue fundraising. So we are in advanced talks with a couple of funders, one domestic, one international. And at least for us, it's not been a significant hit so far.
Rishi,
yeah,
I see one question that I'd like to really answer. Do you mind?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah,
please.
I love this question. It's and also it's to Audacious, and then there was a question around how do people go and apply to Audacious and the process, etc. Maybe you can answer that one. But fundraising, the question is that fundraising is also about the fundraiser's ability to tell a compelling story. Not everyone has the start. What would your advice be looking to fundraise that may not be strong indicators or, and there are two things. There were two examples around this that I wanted to give. Is a lot of the times, and especially for, let's say around, I'll put my screen off because my internet is a little unstable, it seems. For Audacious, for example, we never got a chance to pitch to the actual donors. It was done through Bridgespan. And the lady who was really helping us, Nidhi, to do this, we kept explaining our model, and our job was then present us to the donors because we never actually met them. But one of the things that we focused with was saying, find your own
Safina, you're on.
Everybody in the organization, try and go back. Is she not audible?
Your audio is cracking, Safina.
Okay. Do you need a story of stress and then
While we wait for Safina, I'd love to ask a question of my own, and that it relates to the Audacious project, and it relates to everything that you guys do and the funds that you raise. And it's a question that we have sort of been thinking about at the Nudge as well. Is what is the role of the founder and the leadership in the fundraising process? So essentially, who is your fundraising team? Is it just the fundraisers, or is it the leadership as well? So would love to hear your thoughts on that as well, Maharshi and Safina.
Yeah, so our fundraising team, essentially, as I mentioned earlier, is a 5-member team. It's headed by a senior member who's with a decade and a half of both private and development sector experience. Has a couple of managers and then a couple of associates. So managers essentially are sort of grant writers. So they write the proposals. The associates are there to assist in research, and the director at the top, the one who's a development director, does a bulk of negotiations and manages the show along with other functional leads. So, a proposal doesn't, writing a proposal is one thing, but you obviously need data from the field, you need data from the government, you need data from the impact assessment team, from your finance team, from your HR team, etc. So the director at the top manages the show, both internally as well as with the funder. The managers are grant writers and the associates are researchers, essentially. That's how we have structured our team. Where does Safina step in? So Safina has a very active role, especially in conveying her vision, her vision, her journey, etc., to the funder. How much ever professional and process driven we try to make the fundraising process per se, but you obviously have to lean into the founder from time to time, because funders do believe and do get convinced with the vision of the founder. So while research, grant writing, managing the show internally and externally is done by the fundraising team, we do lean into Safina quite frequently and regularly when it comes to speaking with funders, when it comes to presenting to the board of the funders, when it comes to speaking with foundation leads, etc. So yeah, she is involved. I believe, and Safina would correct me here, but perhaps about let's say 25% to a third of our time does get utilized in fundraising. Annually, that is.
Yes, yes. And I think also because our donors are multi-year donors, so I think there's a deep relationship that we have with them. And a lot of that relationship is really, Marshi's been with Educate Girls for 7 years plus now. And so really we've known people personally for almost a decade, etc. So I think all of that really does still fall on us. It isn't, just a proposal and just something that's written, but an active relationship that we nurture. Rishi, did you cover the Audacious project process?
I was just
we were just waiting for you.
Yeah, so Audacious project is a collaborative philanthropy where very well-known, very reputed, high-profile philanthropists globally come together and pick projects that have the power for transformative scale over a period of time. So what the new age terminology big bet means, they're willing to bet big on ideas that have transformative power, transformative scale and impact capacities. So far we have had 3 years of Audacious projects being selected. This is the 4th year as we speak. The first 2 years were done behind closed doors. So, they were organizations that were invited to apply, and then they were handpicked. When we applied, it was an open process. And now since last year, it's become an open process throughout. So the first round applications opened, I think in May of 2018, April, May of 2018. And the first round basically had about 8 questions that each organization had to answer, narrative style questions. So I believe 1,560 organizations had applied in round 1. Out of that, they shortlisted about 220 odd for round 2. Where there was further, inquiry and a lot more narrative questions came our way, which was around July of 2018. And from those 220 odd, 20 odd were selected for further scrutiny. And then we had calls, we had video interviews with the Britspan and the TED team. And out of those 20, 10 were selected who were the finalists, who were invited to New York to actually brainstorm on this core idea that we presented via workshop-styled sessions over 3 days. And from those 10 finalists, 8 got selected as Audacious project in April of 2019. So, the process that started in May of 2018 ended in April of 2019. So it's an 11-month-long process. Round 1 was May, round 2 was July, round 3 was August, round 4 were the workshops in New York that happened in October of 2018. Then you submit your final investment thesis by December 31st, and then eventual decision in April of 2019. So we went from 1,560 organizations to 8 organizations.
Yeah, hi Marshi, Safina, this is Sriram here. I also had a question from my end. I think one of the common questions, because Give India, we had asked all the 1,500 nonprofits to also ask certain questions. And one of those has been the discovery process of the funders itself. while there are a lot of notifications on saying that we have opened up ourselves for proposals, but how do I really break into a foundation? Should it be top down? Should I know somebody internally before our application is even processed? Because a lot of times we don't come to know why our application is either accepted or, for that matter, even rejected. So how does one go about discovering the process of availability of funds and opening doors inside an organization? Are there any tactics, strategies that you've had success with?
So, Safina, jump in whenever you feel. But more importantly, we have relied. So, one, we do extensive research on that funder. Okay, whenever we apply, I doubt whether we have ever applied blind to any organization. We would have, done adequate research on the history, on the kind of projects that the foundation or the trust or the corporation or the venture philanthropy is funded. What's the the tenure of funding, what's the size of funding, geographical preference, sectoral preference. So we have adequate research on our side to convince us to apply. That's one. Second, we usually rely on our board, on our advisory, and on our existing bunch of funders to see if we can get a warm introduction. We've always preferred that over, just sending a proposal and then, hoping that, we'll receive a call. So we ensure that, we, find some network, some way of accessing that organization, even to discuss ideas, not necessarily to put in a good word and suggest ki bhai inko fund karo. No, we don't necessarily need that. I think we have a compelling enough narrative, we have a compelling story to tell, and that works for us. But more importantly, you're right, Sriram, that, getting that foot on the door is extremely difficult. And for that, we rely on our network. We rarely go without any access, any network there.
Sure.
And sorry, Sriram, if I can just add to that, I think this is why the role of the board becomes really, really key. And I know that, a lot of the times we think in terms of fundraising and board saying, oh, you got to have donors on your board. Or you must have a board that either, you give or you get off on, stuff like that. You hear this like all the time. We have a slightly different lens to that whole piece is we keep our board divorced from money. So we don't actually have any donors which sit on our board because we don't want our strategy dictated by money. We want our strategy to be dictated by what is best for the girl. However, when it comes to fundraising, our board, as Maharishi said, plays the most active role in really, whether it's warm introductions, whether it's actually just, helping with due diligence calls. When donors call and they have a ton of questions, our board is actually right there to be able to, with us, to be able to front those questions and to help us through that process. We have gone on road shows where our board members have actually traveled with us. So they present with us. And so really there is such a big piece that the board actually does, which is beyond just saying, oh, get a bunch of rich people on your board and make them give. And for us, at least that strong governance and that strong kind of alignment, even with our board, has really worked wonders for us. And Maharishi is right. It's all about a warm introduction, and it's all about, what support you can get from your existing donors to make you those introductions, and then also your board.
Perfect. That's very useful. Maybe as a follow-up question, if I may, is that a lot of people also ask, when should I say no? Right. So I think you made a very valid point on saying fundraising should be mission-led and not sort of funding-led, which I completely agree with. But are there instances where you had to say no, or when do we say no?
Yeah, we've had to say no a lot of times. So it works really well as well. I mean, I have to tell you, I didn't have anyone, and no real donors. And Dasra was pitching me to people because we were in their Dasra leadership, and we were their first research report and their first recommendation. And I remember Deval took me to meet with this gentleman, and who wanted to donate to us, and he and I got into a fight. And Deval was like, listen, I'm trying to bring you people to fund you. And yet, this is Michael Pollock, and he has donated to us for 10 years now, because we just did not agree on how things had to be done and whatever we fought. But we came to an understanding where he kind of said, I totally understand where you want to go, and therefore this may not be such a good idea. But Michael is still donating to us. Michael is still with us. He's one of the pillars of Educate Girls in ways, he goes to the field every year and stuff. So I think being able to stand your ground and build a logical argument. You don't have to stand your ground because it's ego and because it's whatever. You've got to be able to convince. But I think those disagreements and stuff work with donors if you are aligned on the purpose and aligned on your values. A lot of the times we've had to exit funders because we were just not aligned on the values. And I think that is, not just that they wanted us to build a toilet, but, we had a donor who went to the field and was just so, spoke so badly to a child. And we came back and we just said, we're very sorry, but we cannot renew our commitments with you because the values are just not matched in how, you see our communities and how you see our children. So it can be a lot of different things. These are difficult conversations. They keep us up at night, but we, have to do them. And I think, and you'll know it in your gut. I don't think you need some standard operating procedure for that. I think you just always know in the gut whether a relationship, a partnership is really good for both parties or it's really not meant to be.
Understood.
Sriram, there are a lot of questions. How do you want to pick them? Would you ask us questions or shall we just answer them one after the other?
We could just pick up some questions. I think one of the questions that is being asked is, Dakshas is asking, how far is too far to stray away from long-term goals when we need to respond to a crisis, especially in the context of COVID?
So this is what we are experiencing right now is not something that we have ever experienced before, right? So while we all have organizational strategies and 5-year plans and long-term goals and, board commitments and funder commitments, we do have to adapt and pivot as and when, there is a need. So again, as an organization, we have basically put impact optimization on top, and then financial sustainability a little later on our criteria set, and that's largely because we have certain commitments which will take us through to the end of this year. But having said that, not all organizations have that opportunity, and where existential crisis does arrive, you have to obviously keep yourself afloat and then look at sustainability. But to answer your question about how far is too far, well, I think I would suggest plot your priorities, plot your cash flows and financial commitments, and then decide on how you want to prioritize.
Got it.
What we are experiencing is unprecedented. We really don't know what the end game is going to look like, right? We don't know when this thing will end, how long will it stay. Just plot your priorities, plot your financial sustainability, cash flows, etc., and then decide.
So one more question, I think this is coming from the Attendify app, whether there are some users logged in from there.
Yeah.
And question to Safina is that nonprofits are asking, when I want to, so I'm an early stage organization, early stage nonprofit now, and I'm starting to build a small fundraising team that will work with the founder closely. What are those essential attributes that I look for in a person before I bring somebody on board? So a lot of questions around, but somebody's joining from a corporate background, will they understand the development sector ecosystem? These are some teething questions. So what should be those checks and balances I have before I bring somebody on board, and how much trade-off do I have between mission alignment and skill sets, if at all that is a prerequisite?
Yeah, I always lean towards the mission alignment. Somebody who really is passionate about your mission, who can communicate it with that passion, that's your man, or your woman. Maharishi had never done fundraising before. He's one of the most successful fundraisers I know. But he had never actually raised even right, Rishi? You had no fundraising.
I'm a crossover. Albeit 7.5 years back, but I crossed over from the private sector. So yeah, never done fundraising.
But really, I mean, he has his heart beats for, girls' education, and that's what you really need. And the rest of it is English. You'll find somebody to write good English and all the rest of it. And somebody who's a relationship builder. You really want someone who is a person who has the right mission alignment and is really a people's person. And once you get that and the English, you can, find somebody to put that kind of together. But pitching, front-ending, building those logical arguments, you really need, I would put like mission alignment up here and then skills like way lower down.
Understood. Well, Safina, I think until Marshi, unless you want to take some more, I think we've covered almost all the questions in the Zoom chat. At least you've addressed them at different points of time in your conversation. Maybe any closing remarks, Safina, and from yourself and Marshi?
Rishi, you go ahead.
So no, I mean, quite honestly, while we have covered everything, as I have seen it, and I've seen, when I joined the organization, our annual budget was, when we started, as I mentioned, was 15 lakhs. And when I joined, it was about a little over 2 crores. And since then we have grown to about 115 crores annual budget this year. I think what's worked for us is that we are very true to our mission and values. We are very true to our commitment. Come what may, we don't deviate. And then we are very, very good at managing relations. I think these three are the pillars that have worked for us. The rest of it is storytelling and communication, and how you weave everything into this fuzzy, nice, not fuzzy, non-fuzzy, nice, warm, compelling story. That's what has worked for us. I think there isn't anything else. I mean, all of you are working on causes, on missions that are incredibly critical for the sector, for the society at large. So I think these three fundamentals, woven into a nice, warm story has worked for us. I think that's all I would like to conclude with.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I think, and this is just a story, when we were applying for Audacious, and these were like amazing organizations in the world over who write, and somebody got back to us and said, you know what, I've seen all the other proposals, and really yours lacks polish. Yours is not polished enough. The English, like, there could be just so much better and all the rest of it. And we got this feedback and we were panicking. We were like, oh my God, we didn't have the funkiest, the really nice charts and the graphs and whatever. And I remember I was just so upset. And then Chris Anderson, who is the head of TED, he said, Safina, I have editors. They will help you polish it up. That's not what is important. What is important is your idea. It's important the impact you want to see and how you're writing that, and write it in whatever English. But the fact is that is the core idea, and that's the core piece of it. And they were so nice because they did eventually get us editors, and they got us some really amazing people who cleaned it up and made it more presentable before it had to go to the donors. But he was just like, don't focus on that. You can get somebody later to help you polish it up, but that's not what matters. And I think it was such an important lesson, saying be authentic to your mission, be authentic to the impact that you're chasing. And don't worry about the frills that come along the way. You can get somebody to come and help you fix that. So all the best to all of you. I know everybody here who is a fundraiser is going through a very, 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 very tough time. We have done a workshop in the past for other people from, people in the sector. So if there is anything that we can help you with, anything that we can share, we'd be very happy to do so.
Yeah, happy to assist. Absolutely.
Well, Safina, Maharishi, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful learning experience for me as well personally, having made the switch to the development sector about 8 years back. I'm still learning. So thank you so much for all your lessons, insights on fundraising. Thank you so much for the masterclass.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Aparna. Hi, Sandeep. I think you joined in a little early, but thank you so much for that.
Hi, so we're waiting for the other panelists to just log in.
Sure.
Okay, Sachi is here. I am waiting for Aditya. Why is Sriram not engaging them? The fuck? I can't help it. He needs to like not do this. Okay. Hello? Yeah.
Hi, Aparna. Hi, Akshay.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, we'll just begin in a couple of minutes. I think we're waiting for the other panelists, Kate and Tushar, right?
That's right. I think there was some confusion with the link, but I think they should be on in the next minute or two.
Sure.
We're running into some technical difficulties, I'm afraid. So if everybody can please log off and then just re-log in, and I will end the session and then just restart it. So we should be back where we were. Really sorry for the technical difficulties. We should be back soon.